while in 2009 people in the street shouted Allahu Akbar as a sign of protest against a regime, there has not been one single instance of people shouting religious slogans. Completely secular, completely civil, social, democratic slogans in the country, and directed against the totality of the Iranian regime. Kurds played a considerable and conspicuous role in these demonstrations. They have always been the bulwark of the general democratic movements in Iran, as well as demanding their own national rights. So that was a really important, significant movement in Iran, and it changed many things.
Has it given more support for Kurds in Iran because it began in your region?
Well, not just because the Kurds are very respected among Iranian people. They know that Kurds were against this regime from the outset. In fact, in April 1979, when the first referendum took place, immediately after the revolution, and the question was, the Islamic Republic, yes or no, Kurds were the only section of the Iranian society that boycotted that referendum. And everybody knows that Kurds were not with the Khomeini regime and the Islamic regime in general from the outset. We have been part of the opposition, in fact, the only part of opposition for decades in Iran. So everybody knows that Kurds are, while we are Iranians, but Kurds are different in a sense that they have been against this regime from the beginning, and also they have their own demands for their national and ethnic rights as well. Kurdistan is one of the most underdeveloped parts of the country. The one of the highest rates of unemployment, the highest rates of unemployment, and the lowest rate of investment in development programs. The security is very, very tight in Kurdistan. In fact, the police and the Revolutionary Guards have carte blanche for shoot to kill people, and they do it. On average, 6, 7 to 8 people are killed every month, and by the police forces, by the authorities, and nobody has been brought to justice. So it's a very, everybody knows that the security is tight in Kurdistan, and they are special to a certain point. But at the same time, we as Kurds share the same ideals of democracy and human rights, and we think you cannot achieve that without a regime change. So long before any American administration said anything about regime change, it was us who said that. And now it seems that everybody in Iran says that. So that is a very important. While the repression in 2009 was very harsh, this time it was not, because the authorities look desperate. They don't know what to do. They are, to a certain extent, they are paralyzed.
Right.
So it is the beginning of a new era in Iranian politics, in Iranian society.
Is it getting worse because of the U.S. pullout from the Iran deal, or is it
Well, even before that, when President Trump came to power and changed in my opinion, the disastrous policies of President Obama's Middle East policies, then things have started to change. Of course, during the JCPOA, the nuclear deal, it was hoped by many in the administration and in the media among analysts, it was hoped that this would eventually, Iranians would open up to the world, to the international community, economically and politically, and this softens the Iranians' stance towards its people as well as its neighbors. But it didn't happen, it didn't come true. The opposite, in fact, the opposite occurred, and Iran was emboldened by the deal, and it intensified its meddling with other countries' affairs, its sponsorship of terrorism, and its anti-American slogans. But the new administration, we still don't know what this American strategy is. We still don't know.
We don't either.
Well, we were trying to ask you.
Maybe Eli knows.
I have a seat for you.
Huh?
I have a seat for you.
Oh, thank you.
So how did the repression, I'm sorry, how did the uprising stop if there was no repression this time?
It's not, there was repression, but the Iranian authorities now think twice before they kill people, because this time it's different. It's economy. It's not just some opposition groups. It's not some intellectuals, students. It's the whole country. The majority of the country has risen.
What percentage of the country do you know? What, approximately?
Well, you mean
The percentage of the
people who
percentage
took part?
that would support opposition versus who supports
It's
the
not
regime?
my statistics, but according to some analyses by the opposition groups, 85%, more than 80%. And it's not something that we claim. Even the reformers themselves have realized that this is the end of the show for this regime. And they speak about it, they talk about it openly. It's not a taboo anymore.
What can we do to help? What can the United States do?
Why not let Mr. Hijri speak, and then I'll answer more questions.
First of all, thank you for managing this session. As Mr. Abdulah talked about Iranian regime in all, but I want to focus my short talking about the oppression on the Kurdish people in Iran and also another nationalities in this regard. National oppression in Iran rests on two pillars. The first is the current political system and the existing power relation, which are relation of domination and subordination. The second is the ideological justification of national oppression by the so-called intellectuals who serve the interest of the Islamic Republic. Those was the same, Mr. Abdullah mentioned them as reformists. National oppression has many aspects that are interrelated. One aspect is the denial of the national identity of the Kurds, Arabs, Azerbaijani, Baluch, and Turkmen. Related to this denial is the denial of national rights in Iran. Iranian Kurdistan is a region that is heavily militarized and securitized by the Iranian state. The cities and towns of Iranian Kurdistan are marked by multiple checkpoints and military garrisons. Obstacles and problems for investment in Iranian Kurdistan, even for those Kurds who would like to invest in their region. During the previous Pahlavi regime, as well as under the Islamic Republic, Iranian Kurdistan has been subjected to policies of deliberate geographical fragmentation through administrative divisions. The aim has been to prevent the Kurds from forming a unified administration regional government to protect vital Kurdish national interests, such as the oppression of the Kurdish language, but also to promote social and economic development in Iranian Kurdistan. As a result of this long-standing policy of the Iranian state towards Iranian Kurdistan, economic underdevelopment and enormous social problems and human suffering have become the hallmark of all Kurdish provinces in Iran. The few factories that exist in Iranian Kurdistan have in most cases been established by the businessmen outside of Kurdistan rather than the local businessmen, and their employees are usually non-Kurds. Lack of infrastructure has diminished the geographical reach of such companies. Not only has the Iranian state not made investment in Iranian Kurdistan or created job opportunities for the Kurdish people, but the natural resources of Kurdistan are exported to the central parts of the Iran. Allow me to give you some facts and figures regarding the economic exploitation of the Iranian Kurdistan, but also of economic underdevelopment in the Kurdish provinces, as well as their social consequences. The gold of Zarashuran in Hawshar is a city in the Kurdistan, located in the Urmia province, which is estimated to have the largest gold reserves in Iran, is exported to the central part of the Iran. The precious stones of Khane, that it is a city of Urumia provinces too, and the steel of Sakaz are similarly exported to the central parts of the Iran. In addition to human casualties, landmines have deprived the population the opportunity to cultivate their lands. The province of Kurdistan, which has 18.8% of the population of the so-called peripheral regions, is one of the most vulnerable provinces in Iranian Kurdistan. The situation in this Kurdish province had become so severe that the World Bank allocated funds to it between 2004 and 2010. In spite of its wealth in natural resources and its potential in terms of industrial development, the province of Kurdistan is one of the most underdeveloped provinces. The Iranian state's deliberate policy of keeping Iranian Kurdistan in a state of economic underdevelopment has forced many Kurds to migrate to the central parts of the Iran in search of the jobs opportunities. For example, more than 50,000 Kurds migrate annually from the province of Kermanshah. In the province of Ilam, the migration of the youth has created a demographic imbalance in that the number of elderly has risen substantially. State policy of economic development and long-term economic planning in Iran thus reveal such policies are based on a center-periphery relationship, which in turn has resulted in systematic discrimination of non-Persian regions. Iranian Kurdistan has a beautiful nature and a great potential to become a hub of tourism in Iran. However, centralization of decision-making as well as the securitization and militarization of Iranian Kurdistan have deprived Iranian Kurdistan of such opportunity. Instead, the Iranian regime has multiplied the number of dams in Kurdistan of such an, but not for the purpose of strengthening agriculture and tourism in Kurdistan, but rather for the purpose of transferring Kurdistan's water resources to the central parts of Iran. Thus, economic development in the central parts of Iran are promoted based on the natural resources of Kurdistan as well as the expense of Kurdistan. And some another figures I want to give you that are from the source of the Iranian regime. Among the 10 cities in Iran with the highest rate of unemployment, 6 of them are in Iranian Kurdistan. The Kurdish provinces of Kermanshah has the highest rate of unemployment in Iran. 1/4 of its inhabitants are unemployed. Unemployment in the cities of the province of Kurdistan is about 60%. Kurdistan has the highest number of unemployment university educators. Poverty and unemployment have resulted in the rise of divorce rate and the disintegration of families. The social consequences of poverty are perhaps most severe in the Kurdistan province of Iran, which has the highest rate of suicide in Iran, as well as the highest rate of self-immolation in the world. On average, every month, 6 Kurdish porters, that they are called kolbar in Iran, are killed, while 16 others are wounded as a result of gunfire by the Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard. Regarding the question that Madam asked, I have some reply. We believe that the nuclear deal with Iran in 2015 by the P5+1 clearly shows, contrary to general expectation, that the lifting of international sanctions on the Islamic Republic and the financial means that the Iranian regime acquired thanks to the deal did not result in a moderation of the regime with the respect to the violation of human rights or an improvement in the economic situation of ordinary Iranians or a moderation in the regime's destructive policies in the Middle East. On the contrary, thanks to increased financial means, the Iranian regime increased its support for various extremist and terrorist organizations in the Middle East, increased its meddling in the internal affairs of regional countries, and created more instability and sectarian violence in the region. This has continued even after the defeat of ISIS. Against that background, we believe that the U.S. withdrawal from the Iranian nuclear deal for the purpose of containing the Islamic Republic of Iran in a comprehensive manner is warranted, and we hope that the rest of the international community will support the United States in this effort. But we also call for further steps in that regard. Most important form of the point of view of liberty and democracy in Iran. We call on the United States and the international community to support the waves of popular discontent and civil resistance to the Islamic Republic across Iran that have gained momentum since last year. The United States in particular has a responsibility not to abandon the Iranian people in the face of the regime's brutal crackdown on peaceful resistance. Our party, which enjoys popular support in Iranian Kurdistan and has struggled against 2 dictatorships for more than 70 years, that is, both the previous Pahlavi regime and the current Islamic regime has plans to coordinate its struggle with other forces all over Iran to bring about a democratic government. To this end, we have since 2005 taken part in the creation of the Congress of Nationalities for a federal Iran, and for almost a year we have a joint effort with other Kurdish organizations established the Cooperation Center of the Kurdish organization in Iran, Iranian Kurdistan. This will enable us to join forces against the dictatorship in Iran. And also we have a unification with the Komola party to challenge against the Iranian regime. This is the situation of the Kurdish situation, and it is a little bit the same for the another nationality, like Turkmen, Baluchi, Arabs, and all the nationalities that they are allocated in the borders are deprived from any liberty, freedom, and any points of the democracy. And when these people call for having these rights, they are cracked down very brutally. They sentenced to the jail, sometimes executed, and they called as a spy of America, of Israel, and another enemy of Iran.
I saw there was an attorney today that was just jailed by Iran because he was calling for human rights, or I don't recall the name, but how many Kurdish parties are there? I know that your two parties are working together, but how many other parties are there?
There are also 5 parties. We recently took the first measures to United Kurdish Fronts in Iran. Okay. We too have a kind of alliance since 2012, but with other 3 parties we joined together, and we have made a center for cooperation, and we hope to form a United Kurdish Front in Iran.
Since the I think, if I'm not mistaken, you have in a few months more. There will be, in theory, more sanctions coming from the United States. Is that helping or hurting, as you see right now, on the ground?
من إشارة كده من نظرنا وياك يارمتي دبلي لبرويك إما تجربة معها دواي قرارداد كوية كنج كوية كإمزاك سانكشن كان لسيلات شو شيء إيران دستي كوية لا بحث كدني كانت ترويسي وكان هنا وشعب سكتي كل يوم إيران دا زياتك وإمام وياك هو يارمتي دبلي وياك رجيم القماري الإسلامي هذي كم تربية توانا كم تربية وياك تو كم تربية توانا يعني كم أو يارمتي هذي ذا بقول تونس كم تربية.
So basically, we believe that it's very useful, and sanctions will be very useful because, as we mentioned, you know, after the P5+1 or JCPOA deal, the kind of sanction reliefs gave Iran more financial resources to have more leverage on to actually oppress inside and also to operate outside. So basically, sanctions will definitely help because Iran is not going to use its resources to do anything good inside out, but it is always doing harm outside and dictatorship inside.
So it's not, you're not going to see an emboldened crackdown inside Iran that you.
I don't think so. Of course, may I say something? It's very important if the sanctions are smart ones, directed as much as you can, directed against the revolutionary guns and the authorities instead of just ordinary people. This is important. But the second thing is the sanctions. Of course, it will have some effect on the Iranian people's lives, but there is no other choice. And I don't think sanctions can help the Iranian regime to crack down more than before. I don't think so. It will cripple them.
Is there cheating on the sanctions?
Pardon me?
What about cheating on the sanctions?
They will, but they did, in fact. They did a lot of cheating during the sanctions, and that was one of the recent causes of corruption, widespread corruption among Iranian authorities. But this time, I don't think they have so many choices. The options are very limited for Iran.
Do they use Iraq, their presence in Iraq, to cheat on sanctions?
They could, and they will, because they have friends in Baghdad. They have many organizations that are affiliated with Hastara and Quds Force, and yes, they will try, but my assessment is the options are very, very limited indeed for the Iranian regime. It's not 3-4 years ago. The change is so deep inside the Iranian society. In fact, the government is, the whole regime is desperate.
So I want to come back to Shoshana Bryan's question of what we can do, but before we do that, I just want to ask, how do you see Iran's relationship with Russia, especially when it comes to the Middle East at large?
پیوندیان ایران و روسیه چون ببینن و دوای بشه بسیارش که چون بتوان یادت گرفتن
شما که او پیمانی شکل بین روسیه و ایران هست زودتر با شاهدان لایان روسیه و امریکا بوی که امریکا شاهد بود و او سانکشنانی که روسیه داینا و آن لا بده لأن پیمانی در منطقه وسياسة الجهاني جوابات الزورة بين دينجاه وشركاء إيران لقوا روسيا.
So basically, we believe that the connection there between Iran and Russia is more Russia is using them as a leverage to actually put pressure on the United States to withdraw from the sanctions. So it is some, in a way, Russia is using Iran to put more leverage on, to put more pressure on the United States to actually use it as a card against the sanctions that actually the United States put on Russia. So because we believe there is a huge gap between the understanding of Russia and Iran toward the international community, international relations, and how the world order works.
حتى استاد لو آخر ده جسمان كروسا كان اختار يعني كهموني لو كان ده بدا سوريا في سنة ده بإيران شو كإيران بوزورنا راح ويتسوانين روسيا.
The fact that Russia asked all foreign fighters to get out of Syria, including Iranian fighters, is an indicator that Russia-Iran alliance is not such a strong alliance.
The Piyawandi legal Israel, سياسة بين إسرائيل وروسيا Piyawandi كيبدأ زوري هي legal سياسة إيران بالنسبة لإسرائيل كأول بقول نقطة زور مهمة جدا.
The way both countries see Israel is completely different, and there is a huge gap between them. So, and it is a very important factor in their international relations. Both countries see Israel in a completely different way.
بوي من شبابي أو هاوكيناني يا هاوكاري بلزات سين بين تكويس بين روسيا وإيران هبو هاوكاري كشكن ده ورنج لتعاملات ذاك بين أمريكا وروسيا بكري إيران بتواويل لأن روسيا وجوب.
So basically, that's why I believe actually the kind of cooperation between Iran and Russia is not does not gonna last, and it's not very strong one. And it's gonna actually the United States with the slightest pressure can tear it down.
Can I address this question about the Kurds? The Kurds have a second problem. Well, let's even say we get a democratic Iran. What's your leverage that tells you that the Kurds will be any better off? If you know a semi-democratic country, but where you're going to have one party dominating, the Kurds didn't do well under the Shah either, right? That's what he said. So what tells us that the Kurds will do better in a new setup?
Even in a semi-democratic regime in Iran, Kurds will have problems, you were right, and we will fight with other methods rather than armed struggles. We will fight for our rights. It's better to fight for your rights in a democratic or even a semi-democratic system rather than in a totalitarian dictator.
أو تكتورة تأكيد هذا كنت أنا وكو كرد مشكلة كذور دورو من يعني مشكلة ما كانها رجيم الكومادي الإسلامي بالكو بداخل لا كيوندي ده الديمقراطية ده أنا جوازي ما هي الديمقراطية كي من كل ما نبي جوازي هي ده الديمقراطية أكثرية كثير خاصة يعني بوي ما بوي كمان وين كذا رجيم الكومادي الإسلامي أبوها إذا هو ديمقراطية كذا مزرعة و خباتي إما فتاي كذي بوي أمن شخصا في مواقع دوايا بخاني رجيم الكومادي الإسلامي خباتي مزرعة هذا السنة ديمقراطية إما تعرفي كينو.
Well, basically, that's a very interesting question because I do agree with you. There is a difference between our understanding of the concept of democracy and the majority and the Persian majority understanding of what they mean by democracy. So that's why I believe even if the Iranian regime collapses, there is no guarantee that a democratic system will be there or we will have a share there. That's why I personally believe that our struggle will continue even after the collapse of regime.
هل لو في ولدت تجربي روحاني رجيم شاش ما هي ما في ما هو خلق في واو روحاني رجيم شاب همو ما في ديمقراطية وآزادي كان لإيران دابين دبي بلان بداخل الإسلام حكومتي كانت كزور خرابتر لوان لرجيم الشاي ما فكاني فيش.
we had this experience when the Shah's regime collapsed. We thought that the alternative will be a better one for us, but unfortunately the regime after the Shah's regime was even worse in terms of social and national rights.
So let me just follow up with that. I think what I'm going to do, if I may, is first of all I want to open it to everybody for questions. I don't want to be the only one to ask questions here, or this should be a conversation. But I think what I'm going to do is after we hear responses to everybody's comments or thoughts, I want to close. I will close the discussion with Shoshana's question of, okay, what can we do for you, and what do you need from the United States? And that way, it'll close it and round out the discussion. I think it should work out well, if I may. But I do want to ask, let's assume for a moment that the regime falls. Let's just say tomorrow, a week, a month. What is there to replace what you have? What are we looking for?
له برسیاره که تو ارتباط با تدین وسر برسیاره که آمریکا چی توانی بودن که ولی ما بلند استراتژی بخواه او چی دیگه که جبین نجیبه که چی دتانی چی بچه جایی
هیچ شکل گرفتەکانی ئاساسی بۆ خەڵکی ئێران ئێستادا ئەوەیە کە لەگەڵ ئەوەی کە دەرسەدێکێکدا زۆر لە خەڵکی ئێران ناڕازین لەو ڕێژیمەی تەظاهرات دەکەن بەڵام بەداخەوە تاکو ئێستا ڕێبەریەک بۆ ڕێکخستنی ئەو ناڕەزایەتیانە پێک نەهاتووە ئەو مشکلێکی زۆر گەورەیە کە کۆماری ئیسلامی استفادەی لێ دەکات بەڕاستی نازانین دوای ئەوەی کە ئەگەر ڕێژیمی کۆماری ئیسلامی بڕوخێ چ دەدا ئێمە هەموو حەولی خۆمان ئەوەیە بەتایبەت کوردەکان هەم بۆ خۆمان پێکەوە لەگەڵ نەتەوەکانی دیکەوە لەگەڵ ئێرانیەکانی دیکەش لەگەڵ فارسەکانیش لە حەول داین بووی کە ئێتلافێک پێک بێنین بووی کە حکوومەتێکی دیموکراسی بێت سەرکار بەڵام ئایا ئەوە جێبەجێ دەبێت یا جێبەجێ نابێت جوابدانەوەکەی ئێستا
It is really hard to answer that question. It is really unknown that what is going to happen after the regime collapses, but there are efforts. We are working with other Kurdish organizations, with Persian organizations, with other nationalities to reach an agreement, to actually reach a sort of alternative for the regime. But to what extent we're going to success, it's not completely clear.
Yeah, I may speculate on that a little bit. Please. Rob Dubois with London Center, also Retired SEAL. We have the Shah was different from the Ayatollah, but he was also enabled by the American power in a dirtier time from us, CIA-wise, the Great Game, Afghanistan, and Russia and America. So the Shah had permission to do things that a fully representative democracy will not have now. That's a consideration, I think, is that while it wasn't the Ayatollah, it was a guy who felt empowered to do whatever he wanted to do to whoever he wanted to do it, just like the Soviets did in Afghanistan during that time. So I think there's a consideration that it would be harder to be abusive to a subpopulation of Iran.
Nowadays,
especially with cell phones everywhere.
Especially?
Cell phones.
Please, I just have a quick question. Wayne McCall, with the organization called Iraq Haven. My question is, if the regime falls, do you think the situation in Iraq will change, or that has nothing to do with that? Especially in Baghdad.
پەیوەندێکی کە ئێستا یا بڵین نفوذ و دەسەڵاتێکی کە ڕژیمی کۆماری ئیسلامی لە عێراقدا هەیەی کە بەداخەوە ئەو دەسەڵاتە گەیشتۆتە باری نیزامیش نەکە سیاسی بێگومان ئەو پەیوەندی بەستەجی بە ئێرانە ئەمتەمەوی لە نەمانی ڕژیمی کۆماری ئیسلامی ئێراندا هەر حکوومەتێک کە بێتە سەر کار لە ئێراندا شێوەی پەیوەندەکانیشی لەگەڵ عێراق دەگۆڕێ بويا نماني رجيم الكومالي إسلامي إيران بو نكر بخلش إيران بقول بو منطقش عظام دقيقة تونك حكومتي داهاتو تكيب شيء أو كيوان يعني ناجي كان يشتغل رجيم الكومالي الإسلامي بو أجال ساس كردنو بو تيكدانو دوبارك ساس كردن هيدي ونظري من
Well, basically, I believe that the influence that Iran has in Iraq has different aspects, militarily and other sort of aspects. That is a very strong contributing factor to the situation in Iraq. Iran plays a significant role. That's why I believe if the regime changes, the kind of relationship between Iran and Iraq will change, and the way that the next regime will see Iraq will change, and definitely that is why I believe that if regime changes in Iran, not only Iranian people will actually benefit from it, but also the region.
So that's why it's important now that when you go in the media or talk to administration, you need to show some facts why, if it change, what will impact, what region will look like. So this is not only Iran itself, it's Iraq and other countries. So that's why when we push in the media or on the State Department anywhere, those things need to be mentioned.
Everybody will be better off. Everybody in the region will be better off, because Iran has been the main source of instability. They're instigating violence, they're supporting terrorism, they're meddling with other people's affairs in the region. So yes, it would be a sigh of relief everywhere in the Middle East.
Without a doubt.
Is there much discussion within Iran among people about their sponsorship of non-state actors and the nefarious activities in which they involve that go against the interests of their main sponsor?
The Iranian regime, yes, they are the main sponsor of it.
Yes, but within Iran, is there discussion, debate about such sponsorship?
It is, even among the ruling circles. There are articles that are printed in Iran, in Iranian newspapers, and some people have spoken out against it and say, why are we spending our very scarce sources to bolster Hezbollah in Lebanon or Hamas or blah blah? Why are not we spending it at home?
Yeah.
And one of the main slogans of the unrest, the recent unrest is Iran is leave Syria, think about us. Leave Syria, think about us. This is one of the main slogans of the demonstrators in Iran. So yes, there is a myth saying that it's been a source of national pride for Iranians. That even if it was so, this is not the case any longer. People now are aware of the dangers and harms of these interventionist policies for their country and their people.
لا كيوني بقولوا شوالي نك كماري ثاني إيران إيكابو أوجو باني دوروبر ووقت كاين كذا لا تظاهراتي أخيرة وإستاش كتظاهرات لكن خلق بأشكرا دجي أو سياسة شعار دنا وبعض لو ذكرك أو علي وإمكاناتي كالسفي أولا أنا ذاك أقول بتونس ثاني لا إيران خارج بويك خرجوا فلاكتوا أخيرا بجاري مجات يعني.
Well, basically, people in Iran has shown that they don't have any desire to support this kind of organizations abroad. They have shown that they are not satisfied with the government's policy. In any opportunities, when they get any opportunity, they say so. For example, they shout in the streets that the resources that you are actually expending there, they need to be back home, and we need the resources.
Now, you mentioned about investment. So here's the question. Let's say that circumstances develop that we're open to investment and the government doesn't block. Are there sources, let's say, are there Kurdish expats in Europe that are very wealthy, that are interested in building infrastructure, that are interested in investing. But forgetting about, not looking at the government as the source of money, but if the government just allows you to access other monies, are they out there in the world?
You mean, suppose that the regime does not interfere?
It doesn't interfere, but doesn't help. So they allow you to receive. Is there a fund of money out there?
Kurds are not very rich, but there are some people, yes, expats. And also there are very rich and successful generation of Iranian entrepreneurs who live in the United States or Europe. So there are potentials, yes, not just foreign investment. So there are potentials, but you cannot explore or exploit those potentials because the regime is there. Because you are not allowed to do big business in Iran without bribing them, without making them shareholders.
So let's go back to Shoshana's question of what is it that you're looking for from the U.S. practically speaking? Are there things that are besides moral support, which you clearly have from this administration, maybe not tangible just yet, although it seems to be headed in that direction by pulling out of the JCPOA in theory, reinstating some of the sanctions and so on. What is it that the U.S. can do for you now?
If the United States is serious enough, resolute enough to support the Iranian people and the Kurdish people in the fight for democracy, then there are lots of things that the United States can do. Let me just say, for example, the free access to internet. Technologically, it is possible for the United States. So please do it. Because if the free internet is there, it will have a big impact on the movement on the ground. And also, social media. It's very important. Train people, train us, and support us, and sponsor us. We can do it. And also the Iranian opposition can do it. There are we have very bright guys. You can do it. TVs, media, Iranian official media is lying all the time, is distorting the truth. So there must be a counter media against the state media in Iran. There is also, I'm saying, if the resoluteness is there, money, training, even weaponry, because the only part of Iran that there are real grassroots political parties are Kurdistan. And the only part of the country that people have their own armed forces, we call it Peshmerga, I'm sure you know. The only part of the country that has Peshmerga is Kurdistan. So money, training, equipment, intelligence, all that. Yes. We can mobilize in a matter of few months. We can mobilize thousands of Peshmergas, new recruits. We already do. We have our own training camps in Iraqi Kurdistan. We have both of our parties have Peshmerga forces on the border.
How many are trigger ready, as they say?
We'll be ready to speak about it when the military advisors come.
Okay.
And also we can mobilize people. We can get them to the streets. And the moment that the Iranian people, but especially the Kurdish people, the moment that they realize that the United States is behind the Kurds, they get excited, overexcited, and they will do anything.
If we stay behind them, it's better.
Sadly, it's-
We really don't need American boots on the ground. It is not necessary.
Just consistency.
Probably it's even harmful at this stage. And also, please help Iranian Kurds to get more united. One of the previous administrations did this. Madeleine Albright did it with Iraqi Kurds, and it worked. And also, one of the main shortcomings of the movement in Iran is the lack of a viable opposition alternative. So, but Americans can do that. They also did it in Iraq. So